The Colorado River is North America's iconic waterway, cutting through towering peaks and arid plains on a 1,400-mile journey from the Rocky Mountains all the way to the deserts of the Sonoran region. For thousands of years, this mighty river has carved landscapes, sustained cities, and supported the ecosystems of the American Southwest. But now, this vital lifeline faces an uncertain future. In this video, we'll explore the Colorado River's rich history and cultural significance, uncover the root causes of the issues it faces, see who's affected, and dive into possible solutions. The history of the Colorado River runs deep. Indigenous communities have lived in harmony with its waters for millennia, relying on it for food, water, and cultural practices. Their relationship with the river set a foundation that was later altered with the arrival of European settlers in the 16th century. These newcomers saw the river's potential for agriculture, trade, and power. Over the years, the river became crucial to the development of the American West, with dams and reservoirs built to harness its energy and control its flow. Today, it supplies water to 7 states in the U.S. and 2 Mexican states and sustains a population of over 40 million people. Cities like Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Denver depend heavily on the Colorado's flow, and the river irrigates crops that feed the nation. The Colorado River faces one of the most severe water crises in its history, driven by ongoing water scarcity, the effects of climate change, and rising demand. Over the past century, the river's flow has already declined by 20%, and projections suggest it could drop by as much as 31% by 2050. Since 2000, the river basin has endured its driest 16-year period in over a century, pushing Lake Powell and Lake Mead, the 2 primary reservoirs, to critically low levels. This decline impacts the reliability of water supplies, threatens hydropower generation, and has led to strict water use restrictions. Another pressing issue is that the Colorado River Basin is shared by 7 states in the U.S. and Mexico, each with its own priorities and needs. In 2021, Arizona and Nevada had to reduce water usage to meet federal conservation mandates, and California may soon face similar requirements. These cutbacks are affecting local economies, forcing agricultural users to reduce crop production and prompting cities like Las Vegas to adopt significant conservation measures. The river's ecological health is also at stake. As water levels drop, ecosystems surrounding the river are disrupted, threatening species like the endangered humpback chub, which relies on stable water habitats for survival. A federal study published in 2013 by the Bureau of Reclamation highlights the issues regarding the demand and supply in the Colorado River Basin. Let's take a look at the results of this study. The blue line represents the historical water supply, which shows a generally declining trend from 1923 onward. The red line indicates historical water use, which has risen steadily, overtaking the available water supply around the early 2000s. This graph also shows future supply and demand from 2010 to 2060. After 2010, the projected trends show that demand will continue to increase, widening the gap between supply and demand. The projected water supply is relatively flat, indicating little to no expected increase in supply. It may even decrease slightly. This divergence suggests a future where demand significantly outpaces supply, which could lead to severe shortages. Now, let's take a look at the symptoms and underlying causes of the Colorado River drought. The Colorado River is an important water source for 40 million people across the Western U.S. and Mexico. The river's 2 main reservoirs, Lake Powell and Lake Mead, are at alarmingly low levels. By 2022, Lake Powell dropped to a record low of about 3,555 feet, which affected its ability to generate enough hydropower. This led the Bureau of Reclamation to warn of potential energy shortages for the region. In 2024, the Central Arizona Project published in their Colorado River Conditions Dashboard this Colorado River Basin map, which illustrates the current water levels in key reservoirs across the upper and lower basins. Lower Basin, which supplies water to Arizona, Nevada, and California, we see 2 critical reservoirs, Lake Powell and Lake Mead. Lake Powell on the Utah-Arizona border is at 39% capacity with 9.11 million acre-feet of water and a current elevation of 3,578 feet.
This is close to the mid-elevation release level of 3,575 feet, where additional water might be released downstream. Lake Mead on the Nevada-Arizona border is at 33% capacity, holding 8.73 MAF, with an elevation of 1,064 feet, which is below the Tier 1 shortage threshold of 1,075 feet, potentially triggering water restrictions for lower basin states. The Central Arizona Project, a vital aqueduct system that supplies Colorado River water to central and southern Arizona, including Phoenix and Tucson, is impacted by Lake Mead's low levels, as reduced allocations may affect water availability in these regions. Arizona faced a drastic 21% reduction in its water supply, which hit agricultural areas especially hard. Farmers in Arizona's Imperial Valley, a major hub for crops like alfalfa and cotton, saw thousands of acres left fallow. With lower lake levels, the Hoover Dam's hydroelectric output has dropped as much as 25%, adding to regional energy concerns. What's causing these challenges? First, the Colorado River has been in a severe drought for over 20 years, with less water flowing in each year than expected. At the same time, Southern California's population continues to grow, adding extra pressure on already limited water resources. When water use agreements were set in 1922, they overestimated the river's flow, promising more water than the river can actually provide. This mismatch has only worsened water shortages over time. Finally, climate change is playing a big role. Rising temperatures mean less snow in the Rockies, which normally melts in the spring and refills the river. Studies show the snowpack has decreased by 30% over recent decades, which means less runoff is reaching the river, who was affected by the Colorado River drought. As this river flows through 7 U.S. states and 2 Mexican states, declining water levels create far-reaching challenges for a diverse range of stakeholders. First, let's talk about farmers and farm workers. The Colorado River supports about 5.5 million acres of irrigated farmland. This land spans both inside and outside the basin, supplying irrigation to 3.2 million acres within the basin and 2.2 million acres outside of it. These lands account for 15% of all U.S. farmland and produce 90% of the country's winter vegetables, making the basin's agriculture sector a vital component of the national food supply. As water supplies diminish, many farms may be forced to go fallow. This affects not only landowners but also tenant farmers and farm workers who rely on these lands for their livelihood. Without water, these individuals face unemployment and economic uncertainty. The ripple effects extend to rural communities and First Nations as well. There are 29 federally recognized tribes in the Colorado River Basin. When farm income drops, economic activity in these regions follows suit, impacting local tax revenues that support essential services, from schools to roads to parks. Small businesses, like diners and local shops that serve farming communities, also struggle to stay afloat. Urban communities are not immune. Cities that use Colorado River water often hold junior water rights, meaning they're among the first to face shortages. They'll need to make substantial investments in conservation and seek alternative water sources, which could lead to higher costs for households.
Lastly, we can't overlook the wildlife and ecosystems that depend on the Colorado River. The basin is home to 43 national wildlife refuges, and as the river shrinks, vital habitats for many species, including the Yuma Ridgway's rail and yellow-billed cuckoo, are under threat. Critical ecosystems like the Grand Canyon and the Colorado River Delta face declining biodiversity and endangerment to numerous species. Now let's look at the analysis and evaluation of this issue. The situation surrounding the Colorado River complex is shaped by failure in governance, policy inadequacies, and limitations in modeling. Governance plays a pivotal role in managing the Colorado River, yet past agreements reveal significant shortcomings. The 1922 Colorado River Compact, the foundation for water allocations for the 7 states in the United States and Mexico, relied on optimistic flow estimates that have now proven unsustainable. This over-allocation has intensified shortages and led to disputes. The law of the river comprises over 100 agreements, treaties, and court decisions. But many of these provisions were developed with little foresight into today's climate stresses and population growth in the Colorado Basin. This lack of flexibility has created friction among stakeholders, including municipal and agricultural users,
indigenous communities, and environmental advocates, each bound by outdated allocations. As several agreements reach expiration in 2026, new compromises will be critical. Fortunately, relationships among states and basin entities remain strong, and the willingness to continue collaborating will be key in forging updated agreements. Nevertheless, action is essential, and soon, as nature will eventually compel these states to make difficult choices if no collective decisions are reached. Policy decisions have often lagged behind environmental changes, failing to keep pace with evolving hydrological conditions. Early overestimations of the river's flow, pegged optimistically at 16.5 million acre-feet per year, masked an imbalance between water supply and demand. Over the last century, actual flows have averaged around 14.6 million acre-feet, and policy has struggled to address this shortfall. Efforts such as the 2019 Drought Contingency Plan have provided stopgap measures to limit consumption. But these policies lack the longevity needed to manage long-term challenges. With the DCP set to expire in 2026, stakeholders will need to look beyond short-term fixes and rethink water allocations in a way that addresses structural overuse. Despite repeated calls for policy revisions based on updated hydrological science, progress remains slow, encumbered by legal complexities and conflicting state interests. Modeling tools, like the Colorado River Simulation System and the Colorado River Midterm Modeling System, are essential for river management, offering insights into potential reservoir levels and assisting in water management decisions. However, these models have limitations. Initially created with assumptions that overlook some of the river's unique complexities, they struggle to predict extreme flow events accurately. For example, CRSS, which relies on historical data for scenario building, missed the low flows of 2001 to 2004 due to its simplified assumptions. Furthermore, the CRSS operates on a monthly timescale over a multi-decadal planning horizon, which is inadequate for simulating modern environmental management challenges that require daily or hourly temporal resolutions. While recent advancements, such as incorporating paleoclimate data, have enhanced long-term perspectives, models still grapple to integrate the system complexities and uncertainties of climate change and varied water demands. Additionally, these models can be overly complex, limiting access to valuable projections for certain groups, including some indigenous communities. This lack of accessibility hinders collective efforts for better water management. The Colorado River is in trouble. Outdated policies, governance gaps, and limitations in modeling are putting this lifeline at serious risk. But hope isn't lost. Solutions are within reach. Let's dive in. First, let's talk about governance issues. Managing the Colorado River requires teamwork across 7 states in the United States and Mexico, and a web of over 100 agreements. But many of these policies are outdated, based on optimistic assumptions that don't fit today's realities. As Patty Aaron from the United States Bureau of Reclamation said in a recent interview, we need several years of good snowpack and runoff just to restore reservoir levels. Clearly, we need more than luck, we need meta-governance, a coordinated approach that aligns policies across local, state, and federal levels while bringing all stakeholders to the table. As a key priority, ensure indigenous communities, environmental advocates. When the current agreements expire in 2026, flexible, climate-adaptive policies must replace them. Cooperation is no longer optional, it's essential. Now, onto policy inadequacies. Past policies relied on overly optimistic projections of water flow, about 16.5 million acre-feet annually. In reality, the river's average is closer to 14.6 million. And that gap is creating big problems. We need more than quick fixes like the Drought Contingency Plan, which expires in 2026. Instead, cities and farmers must shift towards sustainable water use. Urban areas are starting to recycle water, and farmers are exploring less water-intensive crops. However, real progress will require long-term policies that reflect changing climate conditions and address structural overuse. Finally, let's look at modeling limitations. The Colorado River Simulation System, or CRSS, is our primary tool for managing water, but it has shortcomings. It runs on a monthly timescale. Even though many natural processes like snowmelt and reservoir releases occur on a daily or even hourly basis, closing this gap will require a major effort, but it's worth it. We also need models that integrate system complexities, uncertainties, and real-time data on precipitation, temperature, and usage, so they can respond to rapid changes. These models need to reflect everyone's voice. Including Native American tribes, farmers, and city planners in the modeling process will make policies more effective and fair. The Colorado River's future depends on us. Managing it sustainably will take more than conservation, it will require teamwork across state lines, smarter policies, and models that reflect reality. Every stakeholder, from farmers to urban planners, must step up. The river has sustained life in the Southwest for centuries. Now, it's time for us to give back. If we act today, we can avoid harsh choices forced by nature tomorrow. But if we don't, we risk losing the river that sustains us all.